we represent and found Ray, who is 41 and takes medication to control his cholesterol, a 10-year, $500,000 policy for under $27 a month. That's almost twice the coverage for less than half of what he had paid. If SelectQuote hasn't shopped for your life insurance, you're probably paying too much.
For your free quote, call 800-597-0315. That's 800-597-0315. 800-597-0315. Or go to SelectQuote.com. Since 1985, we shop, you save.
Get full details on the example policy at SelectQuote.com/commercials. Or price could vary depending on your health, issuing company, and other factors. Not available in all states.
8:07 on AM 560. Time for a dry basement and a healthy home. It's time to call Permaseal, 800-421-SEAL. Time to check the roads in the AM 560 Traffic Center with Jim Telemonte.
Inbound Kennedy delays start at Canfield. It's 58 minutes, O'Hare to downtown. 35 from Montrose, 23 in the Express. Outbound 43 minutes at the airport. Eden's 28 minutes, Lake Cook to Junction. Outbound 32. The Eisenhower's an hour and 10 minutes, 390 to downtown. 51 minutes from Manheim. Outbound 42 minutes to 390. Stevenson 55 minutes, 355 to drive. Outbound 41. Ryan 25 minutes, 95th to downtown. Northbound tri-state delays are in pockets from 111th to 47th, and it's heavy from Reagan to Lawrence. Eastbound Adams tollway delays are Beverly to Bartlett, around 53, then Elmhurst to Lee. Reagan tollway from 25 to Mill. That's traffic. I'm Jim Telemonte on AM 560 The Answer.
Chicago's Morning Answer continues next. In our 1-hour heating and air conditioning weather center, quickly clouds and sunshine today, a high of 44. Currently, it is 29 degrees. Your next news update, 8:30, and Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan and Amy continues next on AM 560, The Answer.
This hourly segment is brought to you by In the Know with Wealth Management Group, hosted by Craig Bolanos. Heard Sunday mornings at 10.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Ding, 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 ding. Bruce Wolf and Scott the Cow Guy in for Dan and Amy.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. We are monitoring Nancy Pelosi, who's rasping through a speech that so far, through the first 5 or 7 minutes with the flags behind her, looks like she's trying to save, what happened, the remnants of the impeachment inquiry yesterday when they went for 8 hours and 25 minutes and it couldn't seem to state a case. She's trying to, it seems like state one now, although I would caution. I remember when Comey started talking about Hillary. Recall that?
Yes.
And he basically laid out the case against Hillary, and I knew what he was going to do.
Did you know that?
Yeah, because he was trying to say, it's really bad, it's really bad, it's really bad, but we're not going to do anything. So I just wanted, Mike Scott's watching this. Yeah.
She has just asked Chairman Nadler for articles of impeachment today.
All right, today. So they're going to get it. So they want to get it done because they were talking about delaying this till after Christmas, but she's asking for it right now. So, better to get this over with so that people can forget about it and move on.
It's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I mean,
so anyway, we are pleased to be joined right now by Chadwick Moore. His Twitter bio says, right-wing bias hack with zero credibility, gay America's ex-wife from hell. Chadwick might be the only honest journalist left. And he writes for The Spectator. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
So you may, I don't know if you heard, Nancy Pelosi says they should go ahead with articles of impeachment on the heels of what happened yesterday. I don't know how much you happened to watch of the 8 hours and 25 minutes of it. What do you think of all this?
I've got to be honest. I've given it zero of my attention or time. I sort of passively see headlines. I'm like, I don't want to feed into this dog and pony show. So I'm just I've not followed impeachment at all.
Really?
Because it's such a game. I'm like, I'm not going to buy into this game. It's ludicrous. I guess I saw they brought in some academics who just sort of made fools of themselves, and they're all kind of Trump-deranged professors, and it just sounds like such a clown show.
Yeah, well, it's like the typical American. I think you represent the typical American who is, I mean, after they got a chance to shoot their wad with Russia, and especially having Adam Schiff as the front guy, that was a big mistake as well. So I can understand her doing this right now. Well, let's move on to something else. That's fine.
Do you think she's doing it because of the report that's coming out next week? Kind of see if she can steal some of that thunder?
Well, that's also because of the FISA investigation. Well, you never know. She might want to preempt that.
I mean, the only reason I'm not getting more excited about that report next week is that I saw how excited the Democrats got about the Mueller report, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut.
And then Mueller was such a bust.
Oh, it was a dud, right?
Yeah, he was horrible.
I don't want to get excited about a dud, so I'm going to wait.
He was great because he had the look, but he couldn't. Then the voice was like a pipsqueak.
Not
okay,
with
but
what?
Mr. Moore, you wrote a very interesting article for the December U.S. edition of the Spectator, and it's basically about how the cities in the United States, having failed under Democratic leadership, are doubling down, apparently. And you got such things as Bill de Blasio's New York making skyscrapers illegal, and New York's hemorrhaging businesses, cities net loss of about 30,000 people, San Francisco drowning in human feces. Even Mussolini was able to make the trains run on time, but Democrats don't understand that that's what they're supposed to do when they run cities.
That's exactly right. And this isn't really obviously the Democrat Party of today in general isn't your parents' Democrat Party, but it's the progressive city leaders. You can't really. I sort of make the case that they kind of don't care what happens in Washington, and what they've these. There's a reason why that the leadership of all of our biggest cities of New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Chicago, Seattle, they are fundamentally kind of the same person. They're these kind of aloof, smarmy, almost like televangelists or 17th century aristocrats who just kind of jet around the country. They have these their goals and their ambitions are not local. They're not city managers. They're not CEOs that their cities desperately need. They're these kind of ideologues, these socialists whose ambitions are national and global. And these cities are kind of moving in lockstep with their policies. So you see the same things like $15 minimum wage, plastic bag bans, this race-based policing leniency floating from one city to the next, when these are actually highly localized places with their own local concerns, but the city managers aren't doing anything to combat this. And we've got what kind of appears to be this sort of shadow nation that's emerged, this collection of city-states that sort of activists began to realize that these far left radical changes that they thought President Obama was going to bring and failed to initiate would never ever happen in Washington, because there's always going to be too much gridlock, too much pushback from Republicans, too much pushback from moderates. And so they've launched an insurgency into our cities. And we're seeing the fallout, this very, very rapid fallout, as our once great cities are dying.
And Chicago being one of them. Thanks for being on the show. I've got a list of the top 20 cities in America and all their mayors. And basically there's 2 Republicans and an independent, and the rest are all run by Democrats. Any correlation, or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I mean, we see huge demographic changes in our cities with tons of, we have over, since the beginning of this millennium with young people moving in, tons of legal immigrants, what have you. But it's not, there was a time when candidates for mayor really didn't advertise their political party so strongly because it seemed very irrelevant to these highly localized issues of these places. And now it's almost like they're cities obviously tend to be liberal, but we've gone from the liberal city to the progressive city.
Right.
And these activist groups, I point out one group called Local Progress. It's run by a New York City councilman here named Brad Lander. He was one of the big voices to start this. They sort of realized that local elections in big cities are very vulnerable to insurgency because people tend to not vote in local elections. So, for example, Bill de Blasio won re-election with the support of just 8.5% of New Yorkers.
Yeah.
And we just had another election for a very powerful seat. His former role, public advocate, that guy won with the support of 1.5% of New Yorkers. So these groups can really, really mobilize activists to get in there and vote. And this is what we're left with. New York gets such a bad rap because of our insanely progressive leadership. But really, it's our fault for not voting, but most New Yorkers don't like Bill de Blasio. They don't really agree with what's going on, but they also just don't really follow local politics too much.
In Chicago, I mean, I think Lori Lightfoot is enjoying some popularity here, but the problem is, I mean, her first big task was facing the teachers' unions, and the teachers' union, and the way they spun it was that she was being tough with the union, even though the union had to be snickering all the way because they essentially caved before the city caved before they even started negotiating, and then they wound up having to put up with this, what was it, an 8-day walkout?
Oh.
But we don't even have the money to pay for this, and of course, God forbid that black people should want to send their children to schools where they can get an education. The teachers union has a stranglehold on the city.
Oh, right, exactly. And education is one of those big areas that also is kind of floating from one city to next with this more affirmative action. In Chicago, you guys have, of course, Kim Foxx, who kind of became the public face of this new breed of prosecutor, who her campaign was heavily funded by George Soros groups. Basically, when you have these kind of left-wing activist prosecutors popping up, Dallas is a good example, San Francisco, Chicago. They also have Kim Foxx sort of became the face of this because of the Jussie Smollett case. But they're almost all funded by Open Society and George Soros groups, and their goal is not to be law enforcers, but criminal justice reformers, and help get people out of prison early and limited sentences. So it's education and law enforcement are two of the areas that don't get as much attention, but is just as bad. We see like the homelessness and the feces and all that is what's visible, but under the surface, there's it's infecting basically every part of city government.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your example was much better than mine. Thank you. You should host the show here today. No, the Kim Foxx illustration, because she is she's race baiting. She was doing that in the primaries as well. We knew that she was going to wind up, being that way as the state's attorney. And, she's actually admitting that she made some mistakes on Smollett. But but big deal. I mean, the fact that a hoax like that could cripple the city for a while is testament to what we're having to deal with. And she is so soft on this. And to the detriment of the people in the communities who actually want the police protection, but in order to serve some ideological end and not really serve the individual people in the community, we get people like Kim Foxx. And, well, at least there's comfort in numbers here. It looks like all the big cities are like Chicago as well.
Right, and I'm not really sure you guys don't seem to have the massive homeless problem, but I could be wrong. But that could just be because of the weather, also.
I think that's got a large part to do with it. Yeah.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it, Chadwick Moore.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming on with us, Chadwick Moore of the Spectator. I am Bruce Wolf. He is Scott the Cowguy. How do you notice I haven't said your last name because I forgot how to pronounce it?
Well, that's good.
Shalady. You're Shalady, right? Is that right?
No, rhymes with melody.
Oh, Shalady. Yeah. Okay, I'll never remember that.
Right.
If you were here at 5:00 in the morning, you know that Scott introduced himself to me by saying he's Dutch and the Dutch taught the Jews how to be cheap.
Exactly right.
Thanks so much, Scott. I almost walked out at that point, but we've persisted.
Remember, when your wife pays for her half of the meal, it's not called going Jew. It's called going Dutch.
Oh, I see where it came from. I see. And those wooden shoes, wooden shoes you hand down from generation to generation. You're
because they last. You were too cheap to